So it is difficult times for the solar market, and that comes at a moment where we actually, as you mentioned, need to accelerate. So the figures that we have been crunching is that we need to have 70 gigawatt that we're adding to the system each year, and we will be adding 64 gigawatt according to our latest figures this year. So it is nowhere near to what we need to install in order to reach the REPower EU target that the Commission has set, 750 gigawatt. So it is clear that we need to take action.
This is Shine On Policycast, SolarPower Europe's podcast dedicated to EU policy about solar, with updates in 20 minutes or less. So welcome back to season 6 of Shine On Policycast, and to mark the first episode of the new season, we have a familiar face to many, our CEO at SolarPower Europe, Walburga Hemetsberger. So welcome, Walburga.
Pleasure being here. Again,
yes, you've been a guest a few times. And I think the last time was maybe last December. Much has changed in the meantime, and we're now in September, the kickoff of the new political period, the new political school year. And that's really marked off officially in Strasbourg, where last week we had President von der Leyen give the State of the Union speech, and you were there. So can you tell us a bit what the atmosphere was like, some key takeaways from the president's speech?
No, indeed, I was there because it's always a nice moment, when the political season starts again, being in Strasbourg and feeling the vibe. So it was great to see some members of parliament back and exchange with them on the upcoming files. And then, on Tuesday of that week, Ursula von der Leyen gave her speech in the plenary. I was there in the plenary. And it was good to see Ursula von der Leyen at a very critical moment, because you might remember just the night before or the day before, we had drones who were, coming down in Poland. The weekend before, we had the biggest attack, I think, ever on Ukraine with some 800 drones. So it was really a decisive moment, I think, for Ursula von der Leyen to give her State of the Union speech. And it was also a very forceful speech. I think it's fair to say that the atmosphere was a bit dense. Half of the plenary was also in red, marking their protest on Gaza. So a lot of things are coming together in this global turmoil we're in. So her words there, apart from, all the buzzwords that she used throughout her speech, like freedom, unity, security, was that Europe is in a fight for our future. So that was quite impressive, and that this must be Europe's independence moment. So these were the two sentences which I think impressed me most. And more specifically on energy, it was good to hear Ursula von der Leyen confirming that in this independence and in this stride for independence, energy plays a major role. Mm-hmm. Renewables as homegrown electricity play a major role. She also added nuclear. I think there was the new bit as a complementary energy she mentioned. But then also her commitment to fix the grid bottlenecks that we have. So to make sure that electricity can flow freely throughout Europe, and her actions that she wants to take on grids, but also on storage and batteries, which was good to hear.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned some of these sort of buzzwords and keywords, freedom, security, independence, and this shift to the last few years of moving towards a more geopolitical concept of Europe, not just economic. And then what's solar's role in that, in providing this kind of sense of security, unity, freedom, independence? Where do we fit in?
We fit into all of that. Solar plus storage and flexibility has solutions that should be rolled out very, very quickly, because indeed it's strengthening freedom, security, unity. Freedom, if you look at the facts, Europe is still importing more than 400 billion euros worth in energy. That's mainly fossil energy. That was last year. And this is down from more than 500 billion in 2022. It's really going up and down. It's going down. That's good news, but still a lot of money. And apart from the price that we are paying in Europe for importing, we're also very much dependent on countries still, even if we have reduced our imports still from Russia and from other countries which are not our best friends. Let's put it that way. So we have a cost issue, we have a price issue, and we have the issue that we're completely dependent. So that's the freedom aspect. But then I think it's also worthwhile reflecting a little bit on unity, where solar can play a major role. We're living in times where there's more and more polarization, not just in the US, where it's very extreme, but also in Europe, where we see this polarization. So I do think that it is extremely important to take people along in these big changes that we see, whether that's technology, whether that is energy transition and the global changes that we see. And also there, obviously, solar can play a role because it is the people's energy, as we, like to call it.
Yeah, it's a
since
good buzzword.
Very long time.
People's energy, yeah.
So people can really have their energy in their own hand and get very affordable electricity. And if you look at, beautiful social housing projects where they're using solar, because it's a no-brainer. But also if you look at our latest figures on commercial and industrial solar, where companies use more and more solar in order to get their electricity bills down and become more competitive, I do think the society at large can use solar, and it should not be one of those dividing elements. On the contrary, it should really bring people together and give people power in their hands. Yeah, and then security, it's a no-brainer. You just have to look at at Ukraine, where it's just a bit more difficult to attack decentralized energy systems than the big sites that have been attacked already by Russia. So also there, decentralized energy is bringing security benefits. The only caveat is that we need to obviously, for other digital technologies, also look into cybersecurity and controllability, and should not take it lightly. So here's the first call to action already here in our podcast to policymakers to do something about strengthening this digital part of our industry, which is the same in other industries as well.
Yeah, and if listeners are interested, we've got a great position paper on our website that we did with the DNV that goes into mapping kind of cybersecurity challenges and how to mitigate them. But you mentioned the latest figures on commercial and industrial, so businesses installing solar. And we just came out with our first ever mid-year report on solar. We normally just do annually in December, but the pace of the sector is moving so quickly now that we had to do a mid-year report in July, and that's on our website for readers to check out. But it's true that the numbers this year are different to what we usually see. It's the first time that we're now projecting negative growth for the first time in 10 years, since 2015. And we're now in this new phase of solar growth, where it's stalling a little bit. We're still adding to the grid, but it's less than we had before. So you've mentioned all these reasons why solar is great for Europe: security, unity, energy costs, and we see that solar's now entering a new challenging phase. So what can policymakers do here to help us get over this hump, get back to scaling at the pace that we need to reach 2030 goals?
Yeah, indeed. We already, you remember, raised the yellow flag a couple of months ago when we issued our latest European market outlook, where we said, guys, we're not growing as fast anymore as we used to. We had a 4% growth at the time. And indeed, what we've been flagging to policymakers is now becoming a reality. We had 1.4 percentage less growth that we are forecasting for this year. So it hasn't materialized yet, but this is our forecast for this year. So it is difficult times for the solar market, and that comes at a moment where we actually, as you mentioned, need to accelerate. So the figures that we have been crunching is that we need to have 70 gigawatt that we're adding to the system each year, and we will be adding 64 gigawatt according to our latest figures this year. So it is nowhere near to what we need to install in order to reach the REPower EU target that the Commission has set, 750 gigawatt. So it is clear that we need to take action. The reasons for it are pretty clear. There's a lot of solar, obviously, at certain moments during the day. That's at noon, around noon. And this famous duck curve is getting more and more expressive. So that means for the ones who do not know what the duck curve is, that you have more and more solar, obviously, during these hours, which is not only impacting the grids because they have to cope with it, but what it means for solar developers is that they earn much less during these hours. We see a lot of negative prices happening all over Europe, and those hours of negative prices are increasing every year. Mm-hmm. So it is not a great business environment we're in, but it is also, apart from the solar business, it is not good news for Europe's electricity system because we've been sleeping for too long. We have not been investing in our infrastructure. We have not been investing in storage and in flexibility enough. And this is what we need to do now urgently. So we need to provide good framework conditions for solar to further grow. And we need to make sure that, we add a lot of flexibility to the system. It's not so long time ago that we published our Mission Solar 2040 study, where we have also been putting numbers to it. And the benefits as well, which is the energy system will cost us less in the end if we're now investing in modernizing the grids, better planning of grids, if we're investing in batteries 10 times as much as we have today. That's what we need by 2030. We have launched our Battery Storage Europe platform in order to push even harder on that. So there's a lot of things that need to happen now quickly, that we can continue growing and reaching our goals with all the benefits, freedom, security, unity that it brings for Europe.
And you mentioned the Battery Storage Europe platform, and that's part of our organizational strategic shift to make sure we're bringing storage along with solar. And now we have a new tagline: solar, storage, flexibility. And we have this new platform, the Battery Storage Europe platform. So what's work like on that platform? It's quite new, but it comes with a basis of, we've done years of reports on the battery storage market in Europe. So we've got a good basis there. But what are the kind of next steps for the platform, and what are we working on at the minute?
So the Battery Storage Europe platform was launched in June this year. And we felt that, we've been working on batteries and on storage for a long time. It was always part of our asks. But it is such a crucial moment now that we need to scale up on batteries, that we felt the need and the urge of having a separate voice to push for more battery within what we're doing at SolarPower Europe, and hence we launched this Battery Storage Europe platform. So the idea is really to raise awareness through events. We had a very successful event in July together with PV Magazine and together with Intersolar. So that was great to gather the ecosystem, but to also mainly raise awareness to policymakers that they need to act. And we have a list of 12 actions they can do very easily to unleash battery storage through regulation, through better regulation, through better grid planning. Permitting plays a role. Unleashing the revenues batteries can make. Revenue stacking is one of the things that need to happen. And that can be all done relatively quickly, but it needs to be done because the business case as such is there. I mean, batteries have been reduced in terms of costs, in terms of costs considerably over the last years. So they're as cheap as they've never been before. And solar plus batteries, by the way, is also cheaper than gas peakers. So that needs to be clarified, and the drum beat needs to be up on this point. And that's what we're doing with the Battery Storage Europe platform, asking for action. So what we're doing is calling for a flexibility action plan and a battery action plan. And this is what we hope will happen in the next couple of months.
And so then on top of the upcoming activities of the Battery Storage Europe platform and our own activities, what are some key moments in, say, the first half of this new legislative cycle? What do we have to look forward to?
So, taking a helicopter view, I think it is important that the European Commission is going to Belém, to the next COP, with a pledge that is putting Europe on track for more security, more freedom, and that is 90% greenhouse gas emission reduction. That is something that the European Commission has been putting forward a while ago, but really nailing it down is a bit difficult. So there's a lot of discussions going on, and we do hope that this will be the path that Europe will be following. So that is the first, bigger picture thing that we need to look forward to, and hope we will be able to look forward to. Then we are also discussing the budget for the next 7 years, and it will be decisive where the money is going. So I do hope that the money is going where the mouth is. Clean industrial deal is what the European Commission is working on, and that means a lot of renewables, and that means really putting a lot of the money into securing also energy as part of the security strategy of the European Union. So that will be important. And then the third thing, taking this helicopter view, is really Europe needs to take decisive a step on electrification. And here, as we all know, the big debate is around transport and whether we should be a little bit more flexible on the phase out of combustion engines. I think this would be detrimental to the further electrification pathway. So these are the big picture things we will be for sure following, monitoring, and trying to also influence as much as we can. And then in terms of packages coming up, the grid package is obviously very important for us, where we want to see indeed flexibility and battery storage big times in that package already. Electrification action plan. And then the security package that the European Commission is working on. So they want to redefine energy security for Europe, which today is still very much based on
LNG.
Gas, LNG and gas storage. So that needs to be completely redefined, and we do hope that this will also be, this will also entail decisions on cybersecurity and on controllability for the brains of all these different technologies. In our case, the brains are called inverters. So we need to see some very good rules on security there.
Great. And I think that we have the consultation for the energy security strategy has just kind of opened, and there's a few weeks now that we'll make sure to feed back on it, but probably worth another edition of Policycast on that topic alone.
Yeah.
But thanks so much, Walburga, for your time today and sharing all your insights. And thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Shine On Policycast. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications to get updates about new episodes. Shine on.